Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to have you here on a Sunday afternoon here in Los Angeles. For those of you tuning in from Europe, always glad to have you on board. I know it's evening for you, so always glad everyone can take the time for another episode of ADX Live HD, where we will be previewing live with Lars Pickenberg 29 Palms. Here we go, folks.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to join, and thank you, Dondre, for giving me the opportunity. And let's go, I'd say.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are definitely kicking off now. Once again, Lars, so glad to have you on board. Much appreciated. We're just going to start off sort of from the very beginning of 29 Palms. And one of the things I wanted to kind of start off with at the very beginning is your brand new website, complete with web shop and new products. So I wanted to just
Yeah.
give you a quick congratulations on that because you've been very busy between you and Martin, especially with all of the collaborations with LimeSim, FSDG in the past, Orbx as well. So it's nice to be able to see all of your products in one place. Obviously, they can't all be purchased in one place, but at least it gives a very good overview of everything that 29 Palms has been involved in the past. So once again, Lars, welcome from Germany. And by the way, what part of Germany do you live in?
I'm from Hamburg, actually. So it's
Oh,
already evening here.
I guess that explains a lot about one of your upcoming products, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, I guess. Yeah, we had a great flight here a few months back, and we flew in a Cessna about 2 hours above the city, and it's been a great experience.
And so, with that particular product, just to get into that really briefly, that's a product that's going to pretty much just cover the entire city of Hamburg with landmarks, so on and so forth, but not the airport directly. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, the product is made by LimeSim and Sasha Norman. We've done the photos for him, and the rest of the product is supposed to be, yeah, made by them. And yeah, that's it. So we won't have to do so much with it.
Wonderful. So, what I want to get into, because I personally am a huge fan of 29 Palms, and I remember when you first started out, you worked on this really, really small airport, which was San Pedro de Atacama, which, if I'm not mistaken, is in Chile. And I
Yeah,
remember
right.
when I saw the initial screenshots of that product, the first thing I thought was, oh my goodness, this is a developer that pays close attention to detail. And the airport itself it's really far, far away. It's not a huge city. It's sort of out in the middle of the desert somewhere. So, I mean, it's not, it's not exactly like flying into Berlin Brandenburg, for example.
Right.
But I just remember looking at the level of detail that you had put in such a scenery that's kind of barren in the middle of nowhere. And from that moment on, I just kind of knew right away that this was a developer that has a lot of potential. And there was no doubt about that. Then you moved on and you did this Pinnock Field, which this was done for another developer. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It was done for Golden Age simulations. They actually posted a job offer on FS Developer and wanted to have someone who could build a small airfield back from the 1930s. And I wrote them, and that project actually became my first payware project.
I see. And just kind of getting back into the history of 29 Palms, what made you, in other words, what skills did you possess to get into flight simulation, and what was the initial inspiration to decide that this was something you were going to start getting into?
Well, that's actually a long story. I've always been into flying in airplanes. And when I was 16, just for information, I'm 23 right now. So when I was 16, I started soaring. I think you call it soaring. Yeah, right, with gliders and stuff.
Soaring, yes.
Yeah, on a very small airfield in northern Germany. So just a grass strip and 2 hangars and 1 building. And all of those folks were pretty much into flight simulation. And we didn't have the airfield in the flight simulator so far. So I basically started with that, but I've never released it. So it was just a learning project, getting to know the techniques. And GMAX back then, the 3D design program, was pretty complex for me at first. And it took a long time to learn the techniques, also with the help of the FS developer community. And it never reached a final stage. So just the forest was missing and stuff like that. No small objects. And but it was a lot of fun. And San Pedro de Atacama in Chile was the first project which made it from stage A to stage Z. You know, the whole thing.
So that was finally you had set out to do a small project. You completed it, you released it, you looked at it, and at that moment when you realized I've just finally completed, as you say, from A to Z, my first scenery project, did it hit you then at that point that scenery development was definitely going to be a thing for you, or were you still not entirely certain at that point?
Um, I was certain actually because it's a lot of fun and you get to fly airplanes that you will probably never fly, the big ones, tube liners and so on. And it's fun to design objects with every detail you like, you know. Designing in that screenshot, for example, grass, developing new techniques for grass and stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Give me just 1 second. I'm actually just taking a quick look over at the comments, and I'm just
It's
seeing from a
buffering. Yeah.
few. Yeah, is it buffering for you as well?
No, it's working fine.
Okay, a few people said there's some buffering. So I want to do just one quick thing before we move on to the next part. I want to do a quick sound check, make sure everything is okay with the sound, and then I'm going to do a couple of quick diagnostics here. I know that for the archive, everything will come through without buffering, but I'm going to do just a quick diagnostic here just to make sure that there are no issues with the stream, and then we will resume shortly. So I just want to do a quick sound check, make sure sound is coming in okay, and then I'm going to do a quick diagnostic before we continue. So give us about 10 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, and then just tapping the audience here. I'm not sure if everyone's having it. It looks like it's just a handful of people, but that's okay. I don't see anything about sound, so we'll go ahead and resume. For those of you having buffering issues, I'm actually taking a look separate on my laptop here as well, and I'm not seeing any direct issues. I know that with the Skype going with the internet stream as well, sometimes it can have a slight effect, but I do apologize for that, but definitely for the archive stream, that won't be an issue. So the next thing, before we move from the website here, Lars, to the flight simulator itself, last thing I wanted to take a quick look at was this new scenery customizable scenery configurator that you have for sale on your website. And we're going to take a look at that directly with the one that comes with the 29 Palms project. But did you want to just
Yeah.
talk about this or just briefly tap on that in terms of what it's for and how it might be useful to other flight simulation developers?
Okay. The with flight simulation, the problem is that you yeah, can't easily control different levels of detail and switch seasons. So, like in the screenshots we've just seen, buildings who are snow covered, which are snow covered, and the idea is to switch on files which control the objects. So you can have different instances of files and switch on and off animations and stuff, because there's such a huge variety of systems out there, and we always have to keep performance in mind. And that's basically the idea. And this program, I started developing programs with no programming skills at all, C# and stuff. And when I look back at the code from now, which I've written for Fennec Field, for example, which also has a control panel, I'm shocked. And I've learned a lot in the last 2 years, and we finally have a scenery configurator which is capable of controlling different sceneries with one program. And I think along with the updater, that's a huge step forward for us. And if other developers like to implement this in their projects, because I know that not everyone is capable of programming such a thing. It's quite hard actually, but I'm still learning. You can try the free version and download it from our web shop. And if you want to implement it in your payware projects, you can also buy a license for a version which has more features and offers thumbnails, for example, and a description box.
Yeah, and I personally have spoken with a number of developers, and one of the things I've learned is coding the sceneries to do these things automatically is definitely not an easy thing to do. I'm one of those kind of people where I sort of hate having to go in and pull up scenery configurators every time I want to change seasons, and one of the reasons why that
Yeah, right.
is because, right, so for example, let's just say I'll do a live stream and showcase a certain product, and we'll show what summer looks like, and then we'll show what winter looks like. And then later on, during my own flying time, I'll decide, you know what, I'm going to fly to that airport today and enjoy it. And then I'll have the settings for summer, and I'll fly out of one airport and then into the destination airport, and it's summer with snow everywhere. And it's like, oh my gosh, I forgot to go back and make that adjustment. So I think that that's going to be a terrific tool for a lot of people who or developers who don't know how to do the coding directly, and yet now there's something kind of available where they can, have a good starting point. So I definitely applaud you on making that available. And speaking of which, we're now going to take a quick look at the actual configuration tool. Oh no, I have to. I was hoping to show it, but it won't do it while the simulator's running. So,
Yeah, right. It's just for safety purposes. So,
right.
because the tool actually switches files which the simulator has loaded, it's dangerous to switch it when it's running, you know?
Right, right. So, but we'll definitely do this toward the end of the stream. We'll kill the simulator, and then I think what
Yeah,
we'll do
yeah,
is we'll go back
right.
in and take a look, just so that everyone can see, and just to give many of you an idea of the configuration tool. Basically, it gives you obviously 29 Palms is not a huge airport, but nevertheless, it gives you a great number of different customizations to the airport to suit your liking. So I was really kind of hoping to show that off only because of all the options it has. So for the sake of argument, I can just tell everyone now that all of the options that are currently available are programmed for the way you're going to see it today. And another thing of worthy note is obviously I use FTX Global. So it does come with separate files for it to either blend in with default, blend in with FTX Global, or for those of you who are fans of the photoreal, the freeware from Blue Sky Scenery, It also comes with a file as well, all three of which you can download from 29 Palms. Actually, you can download it directly from the configuration tool. So if you're not using FTX Global and you're using Blue Sky Senior or whatever have you, you can download separate files for full compatibility. So that's a really good thing there.
Just for information, I'm also working on a patch for Mega Scenery because it's also quite famous in the US.
Oh, that's right. The make okay, so that's also for those of you who are big fans of that as well. And I know they released a huge one for California also. I think that was either earlier this year or last year, if I remember correctly. So that's good to know
Yeah.
as well. I just need to, I forgot to program my track IR here, so give me just 1 second here. Sorry about that. And as many of you probably have already recognized, we are back in Palm Springs again, which has become quite a fascinating and popular airport. Recently released by Jared Marshall, and if you have not taken the time to look at the live preview and interview that I did with developer Jared Marshall, make sure you take a moment and take a look at that as well. It's a terrific product, and California, Southern California as a whole, is really coming together quite a bit. So you definitely don't want to miss a lot of what's taking place in Southern California with all the different products that are coming out lately. Okay, let's see here. Actually, it's funny. It looks like, let me see here.
Okay, in the meantime, I can answer one question. Compatible with Blue Sky Scenery, does that mean it's compatible with Mega Scenery Earth? As I just said, we are currently working on a patch for that, which will color match the photo scenery to Mega Scenery Earth. And as soon as we have it, we'll announce that on our Facebook page.
Okay, so sorry about that. I was having some issues with my throttle there. So the other reason why I wanted to choose Palm Springs as a starting point is because 29 Palms is actually just a hop, skip, and jump from Palm Springs. It's actually a very short flight. And I thought, what better than to pair these two airports together? And as you can see, the 29, or I'm sorry, Palm Springs has a very, very large coverage area. My taxi skills are horrible. I keep forgetting that I have to use differential braking for this aircraft and not the rudder. So excuse me for that. Um, so I want to talk a little bit because pretty soon we're going to be flying into the coverage area of 29 Palms. And I know one of the things that Jarrett was mentioning is that they were able to get a lot of this data that they use for their photo real terrain for free. How did that work out for you? Were you able to use the same sources for the large cover area you did, or did you actually have to go in and pay for that?
No, they have, and I think it's the only service worldwide, uh, but don't name me on that, which we could use free photo scenery from USGS. And for other projects in Europe, we always had to buy very expensive satellite imagery. So I was quite happy with the quality of the imagery. And in general, that's huge pro for sceneries in the US. That because photo sceneries like Skiathos, for example, cost over 2,000 euros. So that can be a huge, yeah, step back.
I see. And how long did it take to get all of that data and implement it into the flight simulator?
Depends on how much you edit it. So color match is usually the most work, and the actual compilation of the data to a format which the flight simulator can read usually is pretty fast, about half an hour. Depends on the size and the resolution of the imagery.
Okay, and then the next question I'm going to get into, which I think is one that I've always been curious about, and that is the name of your company. And before we get into why you've named it, what you've named it, at what point did you decide? So you released the first two sceneries, and
Yeah.
then at some point you determined, okay, this is definitely going to be a regular thing for me. I'm going to start my own flight simulation company. Uh, at what point, when did that happen? And how did you then come across that you would name it 29 Palms?
I've named it 29 Palms in the beginning actually, because with projects for me, it's always that I want to explore other worlds. I've never been to California, unfortunately, and usually I see, yeah, cool pictures on Airlinersnet, for example, and I've seen a very cool picture of 29 Palms with the desert landscape and so on, and it just amazed me. And so I decided to, yeah, take it on as a project because it wasn't too big, actually. And so good for learning, testing new techniques, what I've learned so far. And since that was my first bigger project and I like the name, I decided why not name the company, because I think it's a name people can remember. And yeah, maybe I'm not right, maybe I'm right. I just like it, and yeah, that's probably it.
See, a part of me always wondered if the two were hand in hand. And when I first saw that, the first thought that came across my mind is, number one, is that sort of a throwback to 29 Palms in California? Number two, is it possible this guy is from 29 Palms? And of course, it wasn't until such time later that I realized, oh, okay, it's a German team. So very good to know. So that's how we got the name, and then you go on to your next project. And with that next project, and I'm just trying to remember which came after Pinnock Field. Was it one of the projects that you collaborated with FSDG? What was that next big project that you did as an official 29 Palms company or name?
It's Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt.
Oh, that's
So
right.
yeah, Thorsten, also German guy from FSDG, approached me with the idea of the project, and I was quite excited because it's a huge, a bigger airport, much bigger than, yeah, 29 Palms, everything I've done so far, and I decided why not take it on, and also he introduced me or us. So at that time, I decided to work along with Martin, an old friend of mine, and yeah, we decided why not try it and go professional in the payware developer scene.
And just touching a little bit lightly on Martin, how did you guys sort of come together and decide that you would work together? In other words, did Martin pretty much possess the same skills you had in terms of what's the word that I'm looking for, familiarization with 3ds Max, or did you have to introduce it to them, or how did that come about?
My hobby was always flight simulation, and yeah, I've been always excited with 3D design, and Martin's hobby was actually 3D design and Gmax and 3ds Max, so he already had a lot of skills, and that's basically how we divide the projects. So 3D design, the objects from Skiathos, for example, Martin took care of them. I took care of exporting photo scenery, ground polygon, autogen, and so on.
And then, so you guys did Sharm el Sheikh, and then, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you guys also collaborate on Heraclion as well?
What was that?
Did you collaborate as well with Heraclion, or
No,
was it
no.
just?
All right. No, no. That was an internal project of FSDG, as
I
far as I
see.
know. Yeah.
So then the first 100% 29 Palms project, then I guess would have been Mykonos.
Yeah, right, right. After we have learned a lot from Sharm el Sheikh, we decided why not take on a project on our own. And Martin visited Mykonos on holidays, and Yeah, we basically, the process was that we checked Google Earth and Google Maps for cool airports in Europe, and he said, "Why not take on Mykonos? It's a nice island, interesting airport." And after we've announced it, um, Kyprianos, a guy from a trained pilot from Greece, approached us, and he had all the information. He provided tons of background information and photos and images of the airport, and along with the collaboration with Aerosoft, yeah, it was the perfect match, and that's why we decided to do it.
And Mykonos of all places, why necessarily Mykonos? So had you been there personally, or Martin, or was it just another sort of dream?
Martin, yes, me, not me, but it's an interesting airport. It's quite high and has interesting weather phenomena, and it's small, not too big. So we always look for airports, usually when we do them internally, which aren't too big, so we can put in a lot of amount of detail, and they don't take over a year, for example. And it's a nice island, so interesting architecture, only white buildings, because they are protected by law. There's a lot of information we got from Kyprianos, which you can read in the documentation. And with project like that, you actually have the feeling that you know the place, even you've never been there. So that's the cool thing about flight simulation in general.
Well, not only is is that the cool thing about flight simulation, but I'm actually going to touch on that just a little bit further when you say that you can feel like you've been there without knowing the place. And the best developers in this industry are the ones where just even if it's for a slight moment, you actually forget you're in the simulator. Or
Yeah.
you visit an airport in the simulator and you visit it in real life, and there's sort of like a deja vu as if I've been here before. And that's actually happened to me several times where I have purchased airports for FS and then I've flown into them, even though I've never visited them before in real life. And then finally, the day came where I got to visit there, and then it was like everything was so well done that it was like I've been here before, even though I haven't. And that's one of the things that 29 Palms has accomplished over the course of your very short history, because you have to keep in mind, you guys haven't been around for 7 years like a lot of developers out there.
Yeah.
Excuse me, 29 Palms is relatively new when you consider the amount of time you've been around versus the amount of projects that you've actually released. And the next one, which is my favorite of all the ones that you've done, and that's Skiathos. And Skiathos, I remember when you first started showing the initial previews, which was basically just some 3D renders of some of the Autogen buildings against a white background, nothing in the simulator yet. But just in
Yeah.
looking at those buildings, it was clear very, very early on, this is going to be good. It was obvious. And then the preview started to roll in more and more. And when I got my first copy of it and flew into it for the first time, I just couldn't believe how good it was. I mean, like I said, Mykonos was good. It was really good. But Skiathos was just a whole nother plateau. And I think one of the things that made Skiathos so great is you used a very, very high ground resolution photoreal imagery, which looked so incredibly realistic. I mean, it's hard to tell that it's not real. I mean, that's just how good it was. And I think that product take you about a year to put together. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head.
No, 3 months actually, but full time.
That only took 3 months. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was trying to remember. I was trying to remember how long it took to do that. So, and 3 months. Did that include all the different variations of the vegetation, the buildings, and then of course the airport itself, the surroundings? The entire project only took 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, it's not. It's quite a bit big coverage area. About what was it? 100 square kilometers, I guess. but filling the photo scenery with autogen and so on is can be done pretty fast. So even we have like over 250,000, I think, autogen objects on the island. So it's pretty dense, but the work is easy. It's just clicking and clicking and clicking. So it can be getting pretty boring and probably hurts your arm and your hand after a few days. So, but yeah, we are planning to make it better. We are planning
Is that even
updates
possible?
for. Yeah, it's possible, I'm sure. Yeah, because we have developed some new techniques like animated people, which you can check out in 29 Palms, I think, in just about 5 minutes, and new techniques of animating vehicles, cars, trucks, and so on. We have a huge library of 3D objects, and all of that we are planning to implement in Skiathos in the next update, and also make it compatible with not FSX, prepared v2, because there are quite a few bugs, I think, with lights, the lighting of the
Right.
airport, and yeah, right. They've changed some things in the game engine, and that's why it's not working. But instead of just patching that up, we thought, why not give the project a complete overhaul?
Well, that's going to be incredible. I didn't think that there was any way that that product could get any better. I mean, I every now and then I like to talk about what my favorite sceneries are, and as you and I were chatting before the actual live stream began, Skiathos is one of my top five favorite sceneries of all time. I mean, that's just how great it is. And for those of you who are fans of Flight Tampa St. Martin, and if you really enjoy the low approaches of large jets over the beach, that's pretty much what Skiathos is. It's sort of the, I think you called it the Greek Saint Martin. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's basically the same, only a smaller aircraft. But I think they even get closer. There are some very scary videos of Skiathos on the internet.
Actually, I saw one recently of a 737 that looked like the landing gear was almost going to take a car out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a little, I think, a little too low on that one. So then Skiathos was released, and then at some point, collaborations with Orbx began, and I don't know how much detail you're allowed to get into with that, but how did that all come about in terms of based on what you can tell us?
Basically, Sasha of Limesim introduced me or us to John, and then we decided pretty quickly to take on airports for Orbx, and we have done Southampton and Sambro so far, and did some landmarks for different uh, countries, such as not a country, but Wales and England and Scotland and so on. And that collaboration still exists. So Martin is doing a lot of work for them, but I'm not sure how much detail or information I can tell about that.
But the good thing to know is that there is still some future, sorry, excuse me, that was a tongue twister there.
Hard word, yeah.
Collaboration that is still planned between 29 Palms and Orbix.
Yeah, right. But for airports, I guess I concentrate on internal projects because you have all the control of the different features, and with the scenery configurator and the updater, it's yeah, pretty easy to bring together a new project. And as soon as you work in a team or for another developer, I have the feeling of, yeah, that I have to deliver something. And after I started studying media informatics this year, yeah, I decided to become, yeah, more independent, and so that other people don't have to rely on me.
I see. And that makes sense, obviously. And speaking of which, so you mentioned you actually are in college now, and how is the trade-off working between the schoolwork and the grueling efforts of developing for flight simulation? How does all of the time management work out for you?
Not well, actually.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could spend more time developing sceneries because it's a lot of fun and so many different fields like 3D design, or the work texturing with Photoshop, programming, marketing, yeah, marketing, Facebook pages, web shop, which is another whole different story. Setting up a web shop is much more work than I expected. And but it plays along pretty well with what I'm studying. As I just said, media informatics. They, for example, in the university, they also have a motion capturing lab, which is pretty cool. And I hope that I can use it someday for animating people in flight simulators more in a more realistic way.
So this schooling that you're doing now actually could quite be very well beneficial to the flight simulation community then.
Yeah, I think so. I'm, yeah, doing design and programming and motion capturing. So the studies are, I think, 60 or 70% informatics and 30 to 40% design and yeah, media informatics. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wow, that sounds all very complex. I know you touched a little bit on Sunboro, which I actually did do a live stream on it when it first came out, and it met all the expectations that US 29 Palms have set in your short history, without a doubt. But one of the airports that wasn't mentioned, which is also in my top 10 favorite all time airports, which is Southampton. And
Yeah.
Southampton, I did feature an Air Daily X First Look article, and then when I wrote the novel, for those of you who have read the novel that I wrote on L8 Simulations Budapest, I was so just intrigued with Southampton that I also included that as part of the story that I wrote. And there was also a live interview that we conducted with John Venom a very long time ago after Southampton was released. And I remember John talking a lot about the people flow animations and sort of, the history of that and the investment and everything that went into that. But one of the great things about Southampton that I noticed for the first time that never hit me before was actually just how important that people flow animation is. And I mean, I've seen it obviously at other Orbx products, and I've seen it in various products from other developers. But one of the things that made Southampton so special is the way the airport is set up. And the airport is basically set up around a very, very small sort of departure terminal. And then it's mostly hangars and car parks. And depending on which gate you
Yeah.
sit at while you're busy programming, your flight management computer and, setting up for your flight, sitting there in the virtual cockpit, one of the things I happened to notice just in the corner of my eye was a guy walking to his car pulling his luggage. And I'm like, oh, check that guy out. And for a brief moment, I actually forgot that I was in the simulator. That's just how realistic it looked. All the animations kind of going around in the background. And I remember seeing comments in the past where people just didn't really see the point of people flow and all of that. And I think people really get it now. The purpose of the simulator is to simulate a form of reality. And when you get so caught up in preparing for your flight and all of the work and everything that obviously goes into that, uh, at some point we just get caught up in the work. We don't really think too much about the simulator. But then every now and then something in the background will catch your eye and you'll look up and you'll just see people and just for a brief moment, even if it's just for a brief moment, you just sort of forget that this isn't real. And so the development community has been getting more and more and more invested in trying to make the simulation more realistic. And so with unfortunately, PeopleFlow is only going to be related to your Orbx products until you obviously develop a similar technology of your own. But it was really with Southampton that really kind of made that all come together for me. So Southampton is one of those airports that I personally contribute to being one of the most realistic airports that I have actually seen in Flight Simulator. And there are a lot of developers now that are taking it a step further. For example, Flightbeam is looking into having passengers in the terminal where they only show up at your gate, and then they'll board your aircraft and all kinds of stuff. So it's something that developers have been looking at, and are now taking it to a whole nother level. And so it sounds like to me that's one of the things you're looking into getting into as well, in terms of adding your own technology, which will of course enhance the realism of your airports. And as we begin our approach to 29 Palms, one of the things I noticed as well is that you actually do have some people animations in there.
Yeah, right. That's what we have developed for this project. It's basically about when I'm at an airport, I don't want to feel I don't want to feel alone. And yeah, that's why we've developed many information animations for Southampton, animated trains, a lot of them actually, and implementing people flow and animated cars, moving on a car park from the top level to different levels of the car park. And I'm always trying to develop new techniques which make the look and the feel of the project more realistic. And the more projects we do develop, the more realistic they get, I hope. And that's what we are also planning for Skiathos, to implement techniques which are similar from the design process to people flow, for example.
All right. Well, I'm encountering a very, very high desert crosswind approaching in. So everyone who's watching who are fortunate enough not to have to deal with buffering, because I see that some folks are still having issues with buffering. So hopefully I'm not going to crash our poor little A2A toy here, but I have quite a strong crosswind coming into the desert, and that's one of the things. I know that you mentioned you actually haven't been out to the high desert in California, Lars, but the
Yeah.
high desert in the summer, obviously, it gets very hot. But in the winter, it also gets very cold. In fact, in many parts of the desert, you can actually get frost on the ground. That's just how cold it gets during the winters. So, and then of course, through these passes, you get a lot of high winds that come through. And not too far, just off to the north, you actually have Joshua Tree National Park, which I actually have only been there once as a kid. I think it was back in 1994. I think we went to Joshua Tree once, and it's an amazing place. It's also a scary place for two reasons. One of the reasons is it has these huge rock formations which people go to climb as sport. And some of these rock formations have like sort of caverns within them that can drop up to 600, 700 feet. So you can get stuck and lost in these caverns. And as a matter of fact, on the day that we arrived, someone had unfortunately fallen into one of them, and they had the helicopters have to go in and hoist them out. And so when we climbed some of these rocks without any climbing equipment at a young age and looking down into the deep, dark unknowns of some of these caverns, it was a little scary. So we didn't go up too high. But another part of Joshua Tree, there's sort of a lookout area that's sort of similar to that of the Grand Canyon. And from that lookout, you can actually physically see the San Andreas fault line, which is huge. And it basically, you have the canyon floor, the desert floor, which is very smooth. And then immediately it erupts into this series of very, abrupt mountain ranges that make up the San Andreas Fault, which of course is responsible for many of the major earthquakes that we've had here in Southern California over the years. And for any of you who have watched that movie 2012, which came out I think in
Yeah.
2010 or something like that, it was really centered around the San Andreas Fault ripping California apart. And I think there's actually another movie that's coming out with The Rock, for any of you who are a fan of him, where they're once again they're tearing Los Angeles apart with one of these bloody earthquakes. So, but it's really funny. I mean, if any of you have ever been in an earthquake here in Southern California, you can tell who's a native Southern Californian because when earthquakes happen, we don't do with it that they taught us in school. We don't duck and cover. We don't run under chairs. We sit there and we go, oh, it must be an earthquake happening. So then there's kind of a little bit of silence, and you look around the room, and everything's sort of shaking, and you're like, "Wow, it's another earthquake." Earthquake. Yep, that's what it is. And then you just kind of sit there and wait for it to stop, and then you go back to your tea or whatever it is. So, and I remember as a kid when we went through some of these major earthquakes, we'd all run and dash under tables, and I never saw the point. I always thought they were fun. But here in California, we have building codes, which basically our buildings are able to withstand it. So that's why a lot of us aren't too concerned, unfortunately, in comparison to a lot of other parts of the world. But the San Andreas fault line is something that mostly runs underneath the crust. But definitely near 29 Palms here is one area where you can definitely see it. And I just remember seeing it as a kid and thinking, oh my God, that looks scary because it doesn't look real. It doesn't look like a typical mountain range. It looks like something that just really shouldn't be there. And you can really see where the earth itself has just been ripped and beat up, and where this really almost artificial mountain range just sort of protrudes from the earth. So if you're using, I think maybe the blue sky scenery or mega scenery Earth, and you know where to find the fault line, then it's a very interesting thing to try to follow in, and you can almost follow it up through the coast. So we've officially landed in 29 Palms, and I wanted to take a moment and switch to the virtual cockpit view. And this is what makes this area so important because what I mentioned, Lars, at the very beginning of the broadcast is that one of the things I noted is that you have a very keen, strong attention to detail. And this is a
Yeah.
perfect example of the detail. Turning off the runway, you can see there's rocks. And again, for those of you who have it, you will definitely need to go into the configuration tool. I'm sorry, excuse me for a minute there. You have to go into the configuration tool and activate a lot of these brushes and rocks and things that you see here. But just sitting here on this runway turnoff and looking at the semis going by, I think that's a Hummer that's moving along that road there. You have the power lines. You've really captured the feel of the California desert. And I've done a lot of trips between LA and Las Vegas. And I can pretty much tell you, if you've never driven from LA to Vegas, this is what the landscape looks like. For all 2 or 3 hours that you're doing your drive, it looks nothing but this the whole way through. It's just this, vacant desert with power lines and shrubs that eventually become tumbleweeds. And it just extends as far as the eye can see. And this is pretty much what the desert looks like. And I mean, it's never been captured this well ever in the history of flight simulation. So, I definitely want to tip my hat off to you, with the exception of Jared's Palm Springs. I mean, this really is what the desert looked like. And a part of me was kind of hoping, because I know that Orbx has been showing a lot of previews of Monument Valley coming up. And but I haven't seen too many close-ups of the airport. So that's one area that I'm really curious to see is how well detailed that airport is going to be. And hopefully it's going to be good. But when I see 29 Palms here, and I don't know, I mean, we know what your next three projects are that you're working on that's already been announced. But when I see this, a part of me just really crosses my finger and says, I hope Lars comes back to Southern California again because this is really amazing. So, and by all means, if you ever happen to make it out to Southern California, I will personally drive you out here just so you can compare your work with the real thing.
That
Without
would
a
be
doubt.
great. Yeah, I'd love to come someday and also to develop another project in that area because, yeah, as I already said, it's great to visit places you haven't been to before virtually. So, yeah, and I'm
Exactly.
glad, even if I haven't been to the area before, that you say I captured it so well with all the. Yeah, it's all about creating depth, I guess. all those little stones and shrubs on the right side, those little plants. Normally, yeah, I wouldn't implement them, but here when you just have sand and bare desert, it gives, yeah, kind of realism, I think. And there you already see animated people, so that's basically the technique Orbx uses for people flow. Yeah, just have a look around.
Yeah, see, there's one guy there, and another thing I'll point out too is the clothing. You've gotten the clothing pretty much accurate. The sort of the overalls look with what shirt is that? That's called like the flannel shirt. It looks like he's wearing kind of a straw hat. Is that a straw hat? I can't tell, but in fact, we should actually start slewing around and taking a look.
I think it's just hair.
Is it just hair? I thought it was a hat. Okay.
Yeah, 3D hair. Well, the head, the guy who's walking around, he has like, how do you call it, head which construction people usually wear, so for safety purposes. And there we have the sandstorm effect, I guess. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Todd was just pointing out that sandstorm effect on the, and did we actually see the sandstorm on the approach because I actually didn't notice it.
No, but I think it happens right now to your left.
Oh, there it is. Actually, I see it blowing
Right,
through.
to your right.
To my right. Okay, let's turn
Yeah,
right
it
here.
happens. It takes place randomly every
Oh, there it
10
is.
to 15 to 20 minutes, actually. Should be to your right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, you can
You
see
can,
it.
yeah, we can kind of barely see it flowing through. I don't know if you guys, there we go. Let me back up a little bit more. We can actually see a little bit of that sandstorm blowing through there. That was one of the things that actually caught me off guard because I didn't actually go in and pull up the manual or anything before I loaded the scenery. Sometimes I like to just dive right in, and so I was busy taking some screenshots and just sort of flying around the scenery, and all of a sudden I saw this dust blowing through, and I'm like, wait a minute! I turned off I thought I turned off the crosswinds, the winds, and then I realized you don't see winds in Flight Simulator. That's custom. So that completely caught me off guard. Another thing that I really love about the scenery is this road that you built here. And one of the reasons why this road is so important to the scenery is because of how well you've made it. Now, you could have simply elected to say, well, I've got obviously a very high resolution photoreal coverage area, and we'll just let that stand in as the road and put cars on it. But you actually didn't do that. You went in and actually put in a very, very high resolution street here that was so good that for those of you who've seen my screenshots, I actually had to grab a car and drive on it. And that was just how good this road was. And in fact, it reminded me of, I like race car video games, and it reminded me of Need for Speed for a minute there. I had the Ferrari there on the road, and some Need for Speed games, they actually take place in the desert. And so the road was so well done that it actually had reminded me of sort of a Need for Speed game. So for a minute there, I almost forgot that this was a flight simulator.
Yeah, I've it's always the same with my projects. I know how they are supposed to look, and I've already spotted a bug in your simulator. You are running prepared, right?
That's correct,
So
prepared V2.
yeah, it looks like we have an offset of the ground polygon to the photo scenery there. Do you see the gray yeah, part of the road which belongs to the photo scenery on the right side of the road?
Oh yeah, I see that.
Yeah, that's new to me.
Right along
So
here.
yeah, we have some problems in Flight Simulator in general because the game engine seems to have a problem with higher airports, and 29 Palms is actually pretty high, not too high. I think about 600 meters above mean sea level, and there seems to be a floating point problem when placing objects, and that's why we have this this bug in prepared, not in FSX. So yeah, I always discover things like that.
Another thing I want to point out is you've gotten the housing pretty much on par. Out in this part of the desert in California, one of the things you tend to see is there's a lot of prefab houses. In other words, people go out here and they can buy huge plots of land for very cheap because there's nothing out there. And so rather than having to build a house, I mean, there are some nice housing communities out here, but a lot of people who want to just have a house on a big piece of land, they tend to go with these prefab houses, which basically is you can buy a bunch of walls and they all snap together like Legos, more or less. And
Yeah.
you see a lot of that. And they kind of look similar to that of like mobile homes, and you see a lot of that out in this part of the desert. And so just kind of pointing out that you got the look of the house is accurate, the vegetation, and in fact, you've actually added some Joshua trees in there as well. So just the surrounding environments really, really make this particular airport. I mean, I think that there's no way this particular airport would have much interest in and of itself, but because you have created it in a fashion that is so incredibly realistic that it becomes desirable. And I think that's what a lot of people nowadays, when they're flying into a small airport such as 29 Palms, that's kind of what they're looking for. They're looking for the immersion factor, and they're looking to see it look as realistic as possible. And I have to tell you, I mean, you've captured it right on. And in the short period of time that I first started previewing the scenery, I can tell you that I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. And another example of that is the cars that you've added. I've seen some developers, and for example, Graham of Pacific Island Simulations. I really love him. He's a very, very talented guy. But one of the things I pointed out in his recent Narita scenery is we saw a lot of Cadillac Escalades and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself,
Yeah.
there are no Escalades in Japan. I mean, I mean, they probably do exist, but it's not a common vehicle to see in that part of the world. And so we see a parking lot that easily could be Los Angeles International Airport's parking lot, which was very interesting. But here, I mean, you've gotten the vehicles all very, very accurate for the area. And one of the things that really stood out to me, for example, is the truck. Um, and just taking a look at what is this? The glider inside of the casing here. You've got your worker walking around. Looks like a construction worker, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he is. Talking on the phone. Yeah, I think it's important to capture not only the airport and the surroundings, but also the vehicles and cars and trucks and people and clothing, um, which define the character of a country or a city or an airport. So yeah, and those animations, just for your information, are custom made. So no motion capturing. Still fun to watch it.
It is actually, without a doubt. And just kind of taking a look in the hangar here. I see there's some panels. Are those skylights or just missing panels? Oh, I guess they are skylights of the hangar. Very nicely done. And a nice static hawker. I think a lot of us are waiting for Coronado to get their hawker out before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's also fully removable. Is that correct? This aircraft, in case anyone
Yeah,
wanted
that's
to.
correct. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so people can move in and park inside the hangar.
And I'm noticing a lot of nice fencing, nice shrubbery, if you will, and
Yeah.
just noting the texture baking here on some of the hangars. Very
It's
rustic,
pretty
old looking
dark in
fashion.
there. Maybe we can switch to night in a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Then yeah, then we can see a bit more inside there.
In fact, my favorite time of day for this airport is actually right around dusk, where the light starts to turn on, and then you sort of have the sun setting out on the horizon, and that's where this airport really, really shines, in my opinion. So, just doing some quick slewing around. How easy was it for you to really get a lot of these? Because obviously you didn't have an on-site photographer. So, and I noticed you mentioned like airliners.net. I mean, did you find that it was fairly simple to get enough data and photos to really recreate everything, or did you find some parts to be a little bit difficult?
It took a lot of time to get all the references I needed. They are all from the internet, and sources like Bing Maps or Google Maps, Panoramio, I think they are called. Um, yeah, so in the end, it's much easier when you have a photographer at the airport who has access to the airport and the apron. But yeah, all these textures you see here are custom made, so put together from CG texture. And so the process is basically that you take a door, for example, which looks like the door or looks, yeah, not not too different to the door that you see on the reference photos. And then you adjust the color and the brightness and merge in other doors and stuff like that. You put on rust on the walls, and yeah, it's pretty time intensive. So it's much easier when you have good images from the real airport, like Skiathos had, when you can just put the photo or the texture on the wall, and that's it.
I think that's a Peterbilt truck. I love that that rig there. That's a very nice looking one.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah,
I,
the
I had
trucks.
I had to get something which stands for America on
Right.
there, and can't be seen in Europe or especially Germany.
Yeah, the trucks in Europe are mostly sort of like cab over type trucks. And yeah, America, especially a lot of truckers in the United States, they own their own trucks. So a lot of them tend to customize them and, you know, make them look like sort of hot rod, you know, type trucks and so
Yeah.
on and so forth. And I've seen some really interesting ones out on the road, and that's just sort of an American cultural thing, the whole thing about trucking. And you know, they live in their trucks and they travel across the country. And but I have to say, you nailed that right on the head. So very well done with that rig. They actually they call them in England. I know they call them lorries. Here they tend to call them rigs. So I guess it just depends on where you come from. But yeah, I really love how you did the truck. And I guess that's a truck driver there, maybe perhaps walking back and forth and maybe waiting on an aircraft to bring in a shipment of horses, perhaps.
Maybe, or he has a problem with his rig or something. I don't know. He's also talking on the phone
So
and
yeah, you're
waving. Yeah.
right. Like yeah, it's definitely a serious conversation, whatever's going on over there. And your people flow animations are very smooth. Just panning around and taking a look at the surroundings. So again, it's not a huge airport, but definitely for the size of the airport, the coverage area is quite large, and it really just represents what the desert looks like. I mean, I tend to do a lot of my VFR flying around the Pacific Northwest, into and of course Orbx Northern California areas. But the desert in the north and the desert in the south are very different, and they sort of have a different appeal to them. And so to finally be able to fly into a desert in Southern California, I mean, it's just been nailed so perfectly. I love the ground textures here, which is also very sharp. There's lots of clutter. So, like I
Yeah.
said, I sort of fell in love with it right away, and I'm really happy to just see so many of these projects coming on my part of the world here. And I guess now would be a good time to switch those textures and take a look a little bit at the night lighting. Let's take a look here. Hopefully, by using the time preview, we're not going to kill any of the lights. I don't think so. Let's see.
Well, I can tell if we do.
There's the sun going down. There we go. That's kind of like the perfect sort of California style desert there, desert look. Very rustic orange. In fact, I don't think we have all the lights on yet, though. You might need to bring the sun down just a little bit further. There we go. Let's see. There we go. So now we have the sun just on its way out of the horizon just before sunset. I love the lighting, by the way, this sort of purple lighting. Now, is this the color of the lighting at the actual airport, or is just this sort of a 29 Palm sort of signature thing? These sort of blues.
I still see the daylight here, so give
Oh,
me
okay.
maybe another 30 seconds.
Okay.
Now it's dusk. Okay, all right. Yeah, it's pretty orange, so orange tint tone. So we don't usually have that in Germany, but just looks pretty cool and desert style. Okay, now the lights are on.
I like how I like the coloration of the lights.
Yeah,
I
it's a
don't.
nice blue, I guess. So
Yeah. And then further outside of the scenery, we see some colorations of red and yellow, which is about accurate.
the threshold lights.
And our sun has pretty much set now. And you've got the Chevron logo, which is a popular gas station here in Southern California. I actually don't fill my car up with Chevron. My car doesn't seem to like Chevron for some reason. But, and there we go. Now we can take a look at some of the hue from the lighting here. And I almost forgot that. Yeah, you actually, unfortunately, Lars, you have to sit through the same delay that everyone else has. So sometimes I
Yeah,
can move a
right,
little bit
right.
quickly.
I'm not sure what you're seeing right now or talking about. So yeah, give me like 20 or 30 minutes, seconds, of course. Um, if you want to have details or information about a specific detail.
Sure, absolutely. And then you can just kind of talk about it as you see it as well, because everyone is seeing it pretty much more or less the same time as you're seeing it. So it still works out timing wise. Um, let's see.
Well, it's just buffering for me for the first time. So now it's okay again.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back in and take a look at it. Unfortunately, what we have here in my part of town is Time Warner Cable, and they're at the absolute worst. I know Verizon has this new Fios technology, which can give you almost unlimited upload speeds, and but they don't offer that to us yet. So we might have to move in order
Yeah.
to do this. Yeah, I know that Skype does take a toll because obviously we're using Skype as part of. That's obviously sucking up some of the bandwidth, and then of course the live broadcasting as well. So for those of you watching live, I can see many of you have stuck with us, and I definitely appreciate it. For those of you who are watching live, and for those of you who can't get it, to work quite well, luckily we won't have this issue once the rebroadcast comes on later on in the day. So really sorry about the buffering and everything that everyone's having today. Didn't really have this issue with the last live interview that I did with Jared, but it's kind of hit and miss sometimes. It's Saturday, so more people are probably using the internet, so that could probably have something to do with it as well.
Isn't it Sunday?
Sunday, excuse me. That's right, it is Sunday. Excuse me. Yeah,
I
it's the
was just
weekend.
wondering. Yeah, it could also be like you said that a lot of people are online right now, maybe watching series and stuff, and yeah, that could also be the case why Skype or Twitch is buffering. So
Right. Yeah.
now we are inside the hangar, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the time difference between L.A. and Hamburg is not that big. We're still in the same day.
Yeah, same day, right? What is it like? 8 hours? 9 hours? I guess.
Yeah, I think it's actually 9 hours difference. And I also noticed on the animated vehicles too, the headlights have that same sort of hue, the way the lights sort of cast ahead of the vehicles. What would you say was the most difficult part about compiling the scenery?
Yeah, I think it's actually like I already spotted the bug with the flight simulator causing the offsets of objects depending on the height of the airport itself. So yeah, it was quite hard to place them accurately. It's not a problem right now in FSX, but I see there's still a problem in Prepared. And also I tried to pay a lot of attention to performance. So yeah, how we optimize performance and export objects so that they perform good, group them together. Yeah, that's basically it, but nothing new here with 29 Palms. It's always the same workflow, I guess.
And how long did it take you to put this project together? I know with Skiathos, I think you said it was like 3 months. How long was this one?
I've spent a lot of time developing the software behind it, the scenery configurator and the updater, preparing the web shop and the forum. And how do you call it? Forum? In German, we say Forum. I'm not sure how you pronounce it in English.
Oh, forum.
So,
Yeah.
Forum. All right. Okay. So let me say full-time work on the airport, which isn't accurate. I had to study, obviously.
Right.
And I'd say the airport itself, so the scenery took about a month.
All of this for just a month's worth of work. And how would you equate that to man hours? I mean, would you say like an average of 2 to 3 hours a day, more or less?
Well, I'd say 1 month full-time, just me, actually, for this project. And I'd say around 6 or 7 hours a day. So
Oh, wow.
I
That's
started the
full-time.
project actually, yeah, it's full-time, right. I started the project 3 months ago. And like I said, a lot of time went into developing the software behind it. And I had to study, so I worked like on an average 2 or 3 hours a day, I guess. Yeah.
No kidding. And so, given the size of the airport, obviously, this is, I guess, if we were to compare it to, for example, Berlin or let's just say Sunborough in Scotland,
Yeah.
the one that you did there. Do you see yourself doing more airports of this size in the future, or do you see?
Um,
Or do you
I
think
think
you would still
it's
do slightly larger airports like Skiathos size and Mikonos size projects?
well, it depends. I tend not to plan too much ahead. So right now we have the updates for Skiathos and Mykonos on our roadmap, as well as Samos, which I'm also very excited about because it's an amazing approach. I think one of the hardest worldwide because of the terrain and weather phenomena. I like smaller airfields and airports like 29 Palms and Skiathos because you can put in so much detail and pay attention to detail, not only at the airport itself, but also into the surroundings and having animated people in the approaches like you can see in Skiathos. So I think our next projects will also be about the size of 29 Palms and Skiathos, Samos, and so on.
Excellent. And I think one little friend here that we didn't actually get to pay any tribute to is this sort of eagle flying around up here. I'm not sure what kind of bird that is. Let's see here.
Yeah, it's
There he is.
oh, how do you call it in English? An eagle. The species is, I know the German name, of course.
What is the German name?
Weißkopfadler. Weißkopfadler.
Oh, I have no idea.
Well, Weißkopfadler translated is white-headed eagle.
Oh, that wouldn't be okay. That wouldn't be the bald eagle, though, would it? I wonder. The bald
Let me
eagle
check
has
that.
the bald.
Just
eagle has, which is like that all-American bald eagle. I wonder if that's the same one. I'm going to switch back to daytime a little bit just so we can get a nice overhead shot of the entire airfield and how it blends in with the surrounding environment. We'll
Yeah.
try to take a few questions from the audience for those that have stuck with us, and we'll start to get ready to conclude here. So just a nice little pullback shot showing the entire coverage area and how well it blends in with FTX Global.
I checked, and it's an American eagle or bald eagle.
Bald eagle,
like you already
okay.
said.
There
Yeah,
we go.
right.
Well, that's certainly a very fitting thing to add with the scenery. Don't think we have any bald eagles in California, though, but it actually just made its way off of the endangered species list, so that's a good thing. But again, it definitely works perfectly with the truck that we saw there, where it
Yeah.
just really shows this is sort of one of those all-American towns there, which is very good. And then just
Those bald eagles are not widespread in California, but they exist. Even in the desert, they can exist. I don't know. But let's say I did my research, and it's not totally unrealistic.
No, not at all, not at all. Like I said, I think it's very fitting just with the scenery. I mean, this is obviously your second North American scenery following Pinnockfield, and so it's just very fitting. It's something that just very says, you know, it tends to say this is an all-American sort of town, airport. You've got the trucks, the bald eagle, so it just kind of screams America. So no, definitely not unrealistic at all. And just coming from afar, we can kind of see that dust flying over now too, which is really cool, which I wanted to kind of spotlight. And Lars, if you want to just start browsing through the comments there, see anything that might stand out to you that you might want to answer. And for those of you who may have any questions for Lars, now would be a good time to ask them. I'm going to breeze through some of the comments as well.
Yeah, just go ahead and ask any questions. I don't see anything right now, but I'm still scrolling.
Yeah, and it takes a minute for them to.
Okay, Todd asked, is 29 Palms planning any future so-called Southern California sceneries like Montgomery Airfield or Paloma? Well, I would definitely love to, but I'm not sure about that right now. Like I already said, I tend to not plan too far ahead. So let's see. It also depends on references and imageries. Perfect would be to have a photographer on scene who could take pictures of the airport or the airfield for us. So if you know somebody, just drop me an email. And yeah, why not? I like the scenery, the desert, and someday I'm sure I also visit California. I'm already looking forward to it.
Let's see. And just kind of scrolling through the comments, I see a lot of jokes in here from some of the usual guys.
Suspects.
And, yes, yes. A big thank you to the moderators. I really do appreciate the work that you guys do. Very, very strong thanks there. Let's see, just pulling through. Unfortunately, a lot of individuals had trouble watching today's stream with buffering, so really sorry about that. Not really sure why. But yeah, that's something I'll have to go in and take a look at. But some good comments about the sandstorms. Looks like people really like that. A few comments here saying the sandstorm is so awesome. Not quite a sandstorm, but definitely just the wind blowing a lot of the dust and sand around. Let's see here.
Yeah, and after this weekend, I can say that I've received a lot of positive feedback, and also some guys mentioning like why didn't we include the marine space north of the airport, and yeah, I can understand that, of course, but as a developer, you have to say at some point that we have to stop, that we can't exceed a special amount of detail and coverage area, and the Marine Corps base north of the airport would be a project on its own, because they have a big airfield or airport right next to it, and yeah.
Excellent. And then, Lars, just anything from you in specific that you might want to get into, or anything that I might have missed? Anything about 29 Palms or?
Well, we could, if you want, take another look at the scenery configurator, but
Oh, yes, that's
about
right. Thank you. I
yeah,
forgot
the
about that.
scenery, it's pretty much it. I'm sure we can do another live stream someday, showcasing Samos, for example, and Skiathos along with Martin. And yeah, I'm already looking forward to that. But apart from that, I think we've covered the airport pretty well, I guess.
Yeah, I think that would actually be great to go in. And obviously, I think 2016, I'm sorry, 2015 is going to be a great year for 29 Palms. Obviously, you have a lot of personal projects, not personal projects, but direct projects under 29 Palms directly. Plus, there's still some collaborations with Orbx. Obviously, there's some collaborations going with LimeSim as well. So it looks like you guys are going to be really busy over the next year or so. So
Yeah.
yes, I'm definitely looking forward to coming back and having you and hopefully Martin on as well to discuss a lot more in terms of what you guys are working on and showcase those products as well. And I'm definitely going to be looking forward to showcasing Skiathos and Mikonos once those are fully ready to go for Prepared V2. And I don't know if it's on your screen yet, Lars, but at this point we do have, let me see, let me refresh my screen here. Sometimes this happens. Refresh. So now we have the configurator up, and I don't know if you can see that just yet on the desktop.
Not yet. I'm still seeing the task manager, but now I see it. I just read another comment question. What's the maximum polys or polygon vertices used in a scenery? Well, that pretty much depends on the size of the airport, of course. And what do we have in? I think Skiathos consisted of 300,000 polygons, but you can have airports like Berlin, which consist of over 1 million, and it's all about optimizing them for optimal performance. 29 Palms, for example, has, like I already said, a lot of little rocks and stones and shrubs around the runways and taxiways, and those at the highest density take over 100,000 triangles. So
Wow.
yeah, it can be a big hit on some systems, but usually it should run quite well. And yeah, we've received a lot of positive feedback, not only about the bits of the scenery, but also about the performance. So yeah, I'm quite happy about that.
And so definitely taking a look at the configurator here, this gives you an idea in terms of everything that's available. You have the animated people, animated eagle, the animated car traffic, which I just don't think you would be the same without those, but naturally it's just good to have the options. And the way we saw 29 Palms today was with everything at dense. So dense usually, if I'm not mistaken, is how the developer intends the scenery to be seen. But if you take a look here, just by clicking on, or rather hovering over each one, it gives you an idea of what's available
Yeah.
here. And grass and rocks off, and I know it's probably pretty small on the screens for most of you, but as you hover over them, you can see kind of in real time what it looks like. So rather than kind of using your imagination, wondering, okay, medium must be medium, you can actually see the picture there where you can see more popping up and then dense. So it gives you kind of a real time look at the differences. And of course, you have the static aircraft, which are very nice that I chose to leave in. You have that static cocker there, or BAE 125, and there's a slash with half of it there and half of it gone. Um, Then you have your various objects there, which again, these are just all those little things I just add to the immersion there. And of course, you have static vehicles, surroundings, which are the 3D lights, which looked very, very good, I might add. And then you have the vegetation, which if you're not going to put in the vegetation, then you might as well not fly in at all, because that vegetation just really makes it, the desert there. And you can activate or deactivate the sandstorm. And of course, you have the option to include GA traffic as well. And then I did talk a little bit earlier about compatibilities with Default Simulator, FTX Global, and Blue Sky Scenery. So if you have any of these, well, obviously you have Default, but if you use FTX Global, simply clicking on that will take you directly to the download file, where you can download the file you need, which I think I have right up here somewhere. FTX Global file here. And of course, it is a triple installer for those of you who are using Prepared V2. So you can be happy about that. And of course, that's the download for the Blue Sky Scenery version as well. And as Lars also mentioned a little bit earlier on, they are working on compatibility with Mega Scenery Earth, Southern California also. Besides that, you can run a check for updates, which is something that I know, Lars, you mentioned you're going to be working on in the future, in terms of including the rest of the 29 palms, everything under one configurator. Is that correct? Or will each scenery have its own configuration tool?
No, only one configurator, and a new scenery will actually add another tab at the top of the program. And then you can switch between the tabs, and the updater will also check all sceneries for updates and automatically update them. Yeah, I'm running behind it here like a minute or so.
Oh wow, that's a long
okay.
delay.
Yeah, it's not so easy to talk about it then, but okay, now I see it again. Yeah, that's basically the idea behind it, to make life easier. And if you remember the configurator that comes with Copenhagen, they also have the option to switch seasons globally. So in the future, with different Flight Tampa sceneries, you can switch the season month by month. And it will do those changes for all sceneries you have installed.
Excellent. And one thing, if you, for those of you looking on your screen here, you'll notice that I highlighted a certain part under the special thanks. This is something that I see in a lot of manuals from various developers. Is there's somewhere in there, there's almost always a special thanks to a gentleman by the name of Arnold Garrison. And if you don't know who Arnold Garrison is, and I guess I don't mention him enough on Air Daily X, but he's sort of the guy who gets a lot of uncredited attention, or like I said, sometimes he's in that special thanks section. A lot of us don't really go through that part of the. I do, but a lot don't really go through to see who the credits are and everything. We're just really interested in the scenery. But definitely, it's important to point out that name, Arnold Garrison, who of course is the founder of FS Developer, and he's created a lot of the technologies and techniques that almost every major developer in this community uses to this very day. I mean, if you were to talk to Flight Tampa or Flightbeam or anyone whom you would consider a respected developer in this community, a lot of them have gotten a lot of what they've learned in techniques from Arnold Garrison. So it's definitely important to point his name out, because a lot of you may not know who he is and what he's done in the flight simulation community unless you're a developer yourself. But a lot of what you see today, and a lot of the techniques and things that we get to enjoy, a lot of those originated from his ideology and things that he's done. So definitely worth pointing out his name in the stream as well. Just doing a quick scroll through the manual so that everyone gets an idea. And Drew, want to say something?
Arno software is a constant part of our workflow, and I'm grateful for that. So I think, he deserves to be in the manual, and that's not even coming close to what he has done for the community.
Absolutely. So yeah, and like I said, I every now and then I just happen to see his name pop up quite a bit. So yes, definitely a quick shout out to Arnold and his many various efforts in assisting the development community and helping make Flight Simulator that much better, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And there's some charts there as well for those who are interested. And also, I noticed here, just scrolling back up one more time, for those of you wondering exactly where 29 Palms is, there is an included map that gives you an idea of where it is and its location from Palm Springs, San Diego, Los Angeles, Vegas, and Phoenix. So for those of you wondering exactly where that is, and my fingers are crossed, but I'm really hoping that we'll be getting a Big Bear Lake scenery coming up soon. I hope. I know that that's one of the more interesting approaches in Southern California for us for light aircraft. One of them is Catalina Island, which Sim 720 has done, and Big Bear is another one because that's a very high elevation approach. I think the runway elevation is something like 7,500 feet or something like that. So that would be a good one. And then I saw in there that was mentioned as well is Palomar Airport. And I don't know if Sim 720 is working on that airport or not. I know that if you go to their website, I believe they have a picture of an aerial imagery, or there's some aerial imagery there that says future airport. And it looks like Palomar in that image, but I'm not 100% sure. So, not saying that Sim 720 is working on that, but definitely that is something that I didn't notice. So that's just a quick response to someone who mentioned that earlier. Just going to take one more scroll through any of the comments to see if there's any other last questions. And anything else from you, Lars? Let me see here.
How do I feel about Prepared as a future platform? Do you believe in it? Because I'm starting to be convinced that after more than 10 years of flight simulation platforms, I need to switch to X-Plane. Well, I think I do believe in it. I think it has some great features and improvement in performance. And as far as I know, I think you're maybe more informed about that. Dondre, is that they're working on the next version v3, right? And I think it should be released quite soon, maybe next year. And I'm glad that somebody's working constantly on making the flight simulator better, even better. And maybe someday we see a 64-bit version. That would be great, not only for the flight simulator enthusiasts, but also for us scenery developers.
Absolutely. What I can say about the future of Prepared is Lockheed Martin still remains 100% committed to the platform, and to this very day, they are still busy working on it. And I think a lot of people like to tap the development community in terms of whether they see, Prepared as the future because, as many of us know, this Dovetail Games company is putting. They have the distribution license to FSX, and a lot of people are really wondering if it will omit a lot of the bugs and errors and a lot of parts of FSX that just, in my opinion, have never been completed by Microsoft. So there's a lot of questions in terms of that, and I think there is some concern if Prepared is still the future now that FSX will be made available on Steam. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I go back and I look at the history of Dovetail, and I can say that if their plans for FSX is anything similar to their plans for Microsoft Train Simulator, then there may not be much of an optimistic future in it. But I will say this: I am pleased with the fact that FSX will be on Steam because officially flight simulator titles are no longer on store shelves, and in recent years we've just seen computer PC titles as a whole start to diminish on store shelves, especially now that you have Steam and companies like Origin that offer their titles directly over the internet. So we just don't see a lot of PC titles these days. So, you know, if this were, for example, 10 years ago, you just have a random Joe going into his, you know, local computer electronics store and saying, I'm going to get a PlayStation game today. And maybe they go down the computer aisle and they see this thing with 747s on it and go, that seems interesting. I've always, you know, had an interest in big airplanes. Maybe I'll buy this and take it home and fly it and see if I like it. And then, you know, they try it and then, you know, they get more and more interested in it. And then the next thing you know, 2 years down the line, they're looking for the next PMDG toy or something. And that's how the community
Yeah,
grows.
right.
Unfortunately, these things aren't on store shows anymore, so I don't know how much the growth has been. But definitely now that FSX will be in a, you know, major marketplace, and the major marketplace these days is online. It's not really in the stores. So for people who are browsing for their next Counter Strike or Battlefield or whatever, not Battlefield, but is it Battlefield on Steam? No, not Battlefield. Maybe it's Call of Duty that's on Steam or whatever it is. That they'll come across Flight Simulator X and will say, maybe I'll give this a shot, and hopefully that'll bring more people into the community. But you know, as a future platform, as many of you know, I personally put all my eggs in the basket of Lockheed Martin and Prepared, and just about every developer that I've either interviewed or have spoken to personally, they've all pretty much echoed that same sentiment that they would really like to see the community moving more in that direction, and that's because we have something that will get constant and continuous regular updates. As far as this Dovetail version of FSX, they did not buy the SDK, so we really don't know if they'll be able to continue to release continuous updates for it or not. I mean, that's all yet to be seen, and we really won't know until that day comes. So it's all kind of very interesting. But one thing that I can say is we are now seeing. In the beginning, we saw a lot of skepticism from certain developers going into Prepared, and now we've really seen sort of a dramatic shift where it looks like the overwhelming majority of developers are going through and taking the time to make their add-ons compatible with Prepared, and certainly 29 Palms is one of them. So I definitely appreciate your efforts because I don't use FSX. So everything
Yeah.
that I do it definitely goes through Prepared. So, and what are you using personally, Yars? Are you using FSX or are you using P3D?
I'm using FSX actually because it runs so well on my computer. I don't know why, but Prepared is still performing not that good. And let's see what the next version of Prepared offers. But the funny thing is that here in the stores you can still buy FSX and a lot of add-ons for it. So that's funny. But I think it's good that it will go on Steam, so we get more attention from the general game community, and people start coming into the hobby, and I think it's great.
Absolutely. And so once again, 29 Palms Airport is now available directly through the 29 Palms web store. And that's 15.95 euros. So I think that equates to like around, is that like $19? I think 19 or $20.
1960, I think.
1960.
Yeah, 1960, right.
So definitely support 29 Palms. Make sure you grab a copy of this airport. And Lars, if you just want to hang on with me just for a little bit as we begin to conclude the stream. And I want to thank you so much to everyone who's taken a moment to view today's stream. Once again, our apologies for not being able to, or our apologies for the buffering in the slow stream today. I really apologize for that. But this stream will be available, if not later today, then definitely will be available tomorrow. So make sure you tune back in to watch that. Lars, once again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and to all of you, thanks for supporting us and the flight simulation community, and I'm glad that I could be a part of this. And I hope that you enjoy the scenery, and thanks.
Wonderful. And for all of you viewers, thank you and enjoy what's left of your weekend. Have a great day, everyone.